If you're frail, you're not much use, are you? I try to eat a lot, but I just can't seem to gain weight. You don't have to force yourself to eat. Well, just surviving is enough, right? Even when I was sick, my mother didn't worry about me. I've always been judged on whether I am useful or not. My name is Mandy. I'm a 29-year-old housewife. My husband, Phil, is the same age as me and was my classmate in middle school. He started a business at a young age and is now a successful entrepreneur. Phil was kind to me during my hardest times. Since middle school, his parents, who always cared about me, were overjoyed at the news of our marriage. Though I am happy now, I faced harsh treatment from my parents since childhood. Beginning with my mother's death shortly after my birth. It can't be helped. My parents are getting older. And they can't take care of a baby at this point. My sister probably didn't think she'd pass away first. You're telling me to raise a child who isn't even related by blood? Don't say that. We've been unable to have children, so think of it as our child. I was actually the child of my father's sister, which makes us technically uncle and niece. I have no blood relation with my mother. Married for 5 years, my parents, unable to have their own children, decided to raise me in place of my biological mother who died shortly after giving birth to me. This child has a fever again. It's tough having to go to the hospital when we're busy. She's frail. My sister wasn't like that though. I was born frail, often suffering from fevers. 2 years after they took me in, my parents had their first biological child. I can't believe we could have a child. If we knew, we wouldn't have needed your sister's child. What a waste of money and time. Don't say that. When we took in Mandy, we never thought we'd be blessed with our own child. Julia, my sister, was smart from a young age and excelled in her studies. As a child, I found her adorable and took care of her as much as I could. We remained close as we grew up. Julia was hammered with advanced education from elementary school because of her intelligence, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. As a result, she always topped her class and later attended a prestigious university in science. Julia, congratulations on your university acceptance. You studied so hard. Today, we'll have a celebration menu. I told my sister as I shared my joy for her acceptance. Thanks, Mandy. But Mom and Dad are going to a restaurant today. Oh, I see. Then go and enjoy some delicious food. Aren't you coming with us? Well, I can't eat a lot at once, and I'm slow. I'll just get scolded by Mom again. It's always like this with you. It's really terrible. Julia knew I was not her real sister but her cousin. As I grew up, I naturally learned about my background, and my parents never hid it from me. After a while, my parents took Julia and headed to the restaurant. Mandy, just clean the bathroom and don't take a shower before us. One of us should use the bathroom first. Okay, I got it. I watched the 3 leave and made a simple dinner with leftovers in the fridge. Due to my weak constitution, I frequently missed school, which meant I couldn't attend university as my parents thought it would be a waste of tuition money. Instead, I did most of the household chores. Time passed, and I waited for their return after cleaning the bathroom. But they didn't come home for hours. Come on, behave yourselves. You both drank too much. My parents, having had too much wine, sat down at the entrance. Julia looked down on them, saying, "Really? You drank too much." In the end, it's a bother for me. What kind of celebration dinner is that? Julia, showing her annoyance, handed me a small white box. I bought a cake at the restaurant. Let's eat it together. Suggesting that our parents could just sleep it off there, she took me to the living room. After a while, my parents woke up at the entrance. Why didn't you carry us to the room? My mother, still slurring her words, began shouting at the entrance. When I hurried over, Julia followed and said to her, "Moving a drunk person around is inefficient. Wherever you take them, they're just going to sleep, right? If they wake up where they first lost consciousness, they'll realize their foolishness, right?" Instead of replying, our parents just got stuck and asked me to prepare some food. I made a simple soup. They complained that it was too bland. And the coffee was lukewarm. But it was always like this, so I didn't mind. By the way, how much did you earn this month? Due to my weak health, I couldn't work outside, so I worked from home instead. I needed to contribute something to the house, or I would feel too ashamed. I was also saving little by little, hoping to leave this house soon. Not much yet, maybe about $400. That's just pocket money. If you could work outside a bit. We'll need money for Julia now. I'll get scholarships for my tuition. I'll work part-time, too. My parents seemed a bit relieved by her words. Julia had started university, borrowing a scholarship as she said, and was working hard at her part-time job. Even when she came home late, she always studied. I supported her quietly from behind. Eventually, Julia excelled in her studies. Easily moved on to graduate school, graduated with honors, and got a job. That was around the time a terrible incident came to light. What did you spend it on? My father, with a stern face, was pressing my mother for answers. I had a favorite idol, and I promised to follow him to Korea. Favorite idol? My father, unable to comprehend her words, was furiously angry. Apparently, my mother had been infatuated with a Korean pop star for a long time, and had poured a considerable amount of money into it. Her feelings had exploded after holding back on spending to think about tuition until my sister went to university. Well, since Julia was going to university on a scholarship, I thought it'd be okay to spend a little. I was there listening to them talk but said nothing. However, my mother then said to me, "If you had worked properly and brought in money, this wouldn't have happened." I felt unfairly blamed. Because of my frail health, I couldn't even leave the house properly, so I couldn't say anything in return. Then, after a while, it was revealed that there was a debt my father had kept hidden, amounting to several tens of thousands of dollars. Even Julia accused him. It's pointless to ask, but what did you spend it on? Don't ask if it's pointless. No, please don't ask. My father was reduced to his smallest form. Well, it might be the bad kind of stuff, Julia said to me, but I didn't understand what she meant. I just hope no child my father made outside comes knocking. Infidelity. That was what Julia meant by bad stuff. Within half a year, our parents' debts had ballooned to several tens of thousands of dollars. Unable to blame each other, the situation seemed to be resolving itself. But the debt didn't disappear. After thinking about what to do, our parents came up with something unbelievable. We've decided to sell this house. Julia will live with us. But Mandy, you'll have to live on your own. I was shocked by my parents' words. It can't be helped, can it? We've taken care of you all this time, and you don't work. I was working a bit from home and had started to bring in a reasonable amount of money. But to my parents, I was not their real child, so they could say such cruel things. I will never allow you to kick out Mandy. That night, my sister and I talked for a long time. A few days later, I left the house. Dragging heavy luggage, I was heading to the station when a car stopped beside me. Isn't that Mandy? It was Phil, now my husband. He offered to drive me as I was heading to the bus stop. Didn't you say you were frail? Carrying such heavy luggage, where are you going? Well, I don't want to hear if it's your boyfriend's place. I shook my head vehemently and told him everything that had happened. Phil listened to my story and drove me to the cheap hotel in the city, where I was planning to stay for a while. How could they kick you out just because you're not biologically related? That's terrible, Phil commented, as he took me out to eat every day while I stayed at the hotel. After I left, my parents sold the house and made Julia take out a mortgage for a new condominium. Thank goodness Julia is working at a prestigious company. We were able to get a mortgage quickly and live in such a beautiful condo in a prime location in the city center. In exchange, I'm burdened with a huge debt. Well, as your dad, I will do some part-time work at least. By the way, there's a new restaurant nearby, so let's go check it out today. We have the money from selling the house. After driving me out and selling the house, they paid off their debts. But without a home, my parents relied on their daughter, who worked at a well-known company. They squandered what was left after paying off their debts on luxuries, not thinking about the future. When their pockets emptied, they started counting on Julia's salary. You can't count on that. What do you mean? I hear our company's in trouble. When Julia told this to our parents, she added, they're accepting early retirement requests. I might not qualify because I haven't been there long, but if I'm going to quit, I might as well get some money out of it. My parents turned pale. Julia, what are you planning to do about the home mortgage? Of course, I won't be able to pay that, so I'll have to sell this place. Oh, not. What will become of us then? Are you going to rent an apartment somewhere? If so, take us with you. Yeah, that's right. If you don't, we're unemployed. We can't rent a place on our own. Listening quietly to my parents' selfish reasoning, Julia slowly explained. I worked part-time while attending university, and have paid off almost all my student loans with what I earned. If my early retirement is approved and I get a lump sum, I've decided to enroll in medical school to become a doctor. She continued, having also found a place where she could work and live in. Hearing this, my parents slumped dejectedly. What are we supposed to do now? Wait. What about Mandy? She was making some money too, right? Now that it's come to this, we'll have to make her earn no matter what. My sister looked at our parents with a cold gaze, then smirked. I received a call from our parents. They asked if I was doing well, and why I hadn't contacted them, saying all sorts of presumptuous things. Mom, I'm actually. Before I could continue, Phil took over the phone. After introducing himself, he said, Mandy's currently staying at my place. We're considering marriage, and right now. Interrupting him, my mom asked, Phil, the soccer player from middle school? Weren't you really popular? Why would you be with someone like Mandy? After some idle chit-chat, my mother became silent as she listened to Phil's further explanations. The wedding is next month. We've already registered our marriage. So Mandy's already my wife, and we can't offer any support. We hadn't heard anything about a wedding. After all we've done for her. She didn't even bother to tell us such important news. In a fit of spite, my mother raged. Wait. Didn't Mandy tell Julia? And then Julia was supposed to tell you too. My mother glared at Julia standing behind her. Julia had been in touch with me all along. When I revealed my relationship with Phil, she immediately went to talk to him. She told him to register our marriage immediately if he truly loved me, or else she would come to fetch me herself. She worried that our parents would turn to me next since she wouldn't be able to care for them. Later, Julia's request for early retirement was approved, and she received a severance package. The company wanted to keep such a talented young employee, but her resolve was firm. The condo, being new and in a good location, quickly found a buyer. After settling the remaining mortgage, Julia passed the medical school entrance exam and began studying to become a doctor, working part-time as a resident. I want to become a doctor who can help people like Mandy, who is physically weak. She says that, as she continues to work hard. Meanwhile, my parents, having nowhere else to turn, came to Phil and his parents to ask for a loan. Despite being rejected by Phil, they came with pale faces. For a while, my wife's brother took care of us, but we were too much for him. Mandy owes us for raising her, right? You must have some money? My in-laws, having invited my parents in and served them a delicious meal, said gently yet sternly, Mandy is Phil's precious wife, and we want to protect her. He spoke softly but looked at them sternly and firmly rejected any further involvement. My parents, intimidated by the in-laws' demeanor, shrank back in anxiety. Then, after handing my parents a substantial amount of money, my father-in-law said, This money is a small token of mercy. Rent an apartment with this money and live on your earnings. Mandy and Julia have chosen their paths and found happiness, right? Now it's your turn. Earn some money and somehow get through your old age. My parents were clearly told by Phil's parents never to come back, and they returned away, both looking pale and drained. They probably never imagined that they would be kicked out just as they had done to me. If they could understand even a little of how I felt back then. Maybe there's hope for their future. Either way, they will now have to work hard in their old age after squandering so much before. I continue to work from home, supporting Julia's dream of becoming a doctor. By delivering homemade meals to her, which she greatly appreciates. I visit her often, cheering on her dream. With a kind husband and supportive in-laws, I am able to support my sister. Thus, I am very happy now.